Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, and today we're coming to you live from Las Vegas for the Cisco Live event. And today we're going to explore the exciting advancements in technology that are ultimately designed to keep us safe as we navigate through our digital lives. And the key word today is frictionless security, and finding that perfect balance between usability and protection. So my guest today is Jeetu Patel, and he's the Executive President and General Manager of Security and Collaboration at Cisco. But most importantly of all, he's friend of the show. It's his third appearance here. It's always a pleasure to meet him, especially in person. He gave a great keynote today in front of thousands of people, and shortly afterwards, he came here to talk to us about some of the big announcements, but I'm not going to give you any spoilers, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Vegas, where Jeetu is waiting to share some of the big stories and some of the big announcements today here at Cisco Live. We only spoke a few weeks ago.
We did. I'm excited again, because we should make this regular.
So for anyone listening that's missed our previous conversation, could you just offer a few words to remind everyone listening of who you are and what you do?
Jeetu Patel. I run the security and collaboration businesses at Cisco, and I've been here for about 3 years.
Now, in your keynote today, you talked about why businesses are asking users to choose their own security plumbing. Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about the scale of the problem that you're going after here?
You know, if you think about the scale of security, there's close to 8 billion people on the planet. 5 of them have been connected online, and we are working hard to connect the remainder of the 3. And when you connect people, you got to protect them. So when you start thinking about the number of people that get connected, the number of things that are going to be connected, and the number of services that you have, security actually is essential for across the board on every single one of them. So from a scale perspective, this is one of the largest available addressable markets that's there. It's a $180 billion market. We probably address 80 billion of that by 2025. And we're super excited to, make sure that we have solutions and platforms that actually make it easy for people. Because right now, the complexity in security is way too high. That's the thing that actually creates more risk and exposure for organizations. Is if it's too hard to understand, you're not going to go out and protect yourself in the right way. And if you don't protect yourself in the right way, then you're going to have exposure points.
And that's one of the things that stood out for me today, because we've gone from that complex world that makes things even worse to building an almost frictionless experience. So can you tell me a little bit more about providing that frictionless experience with Cisco Secure Access, which was announced today?
Yeah, let me actually start with taking a step back. And we want to democratize security so that every human on the planet can actually go out and use security in a way that does not become a cognitive load for them. It just works. It's automatic. It works in the background. Our business is to create the most boring demos in security for the user, because the user shouldn't have to do anything. It should just work. You connect, you get to work, right? And on the IT administrator side, we want to make sure that you get the management of these systems to be easier, because they have so many products internally. Each one of those products has a policy engine. It's hard to go out and manage all of these, and the complexity is getting untenable right now. On average, there's about 50 to 70, products that companies have within their environment that comprise the cybersecurity stack for them. So when we thought about this problem, one of the biggest challenges we had was, how do users connect to applications so that they can get the job done? Well, sometimes they connect to applications in the private data center. Sometimes they connect to applications in the cloud. Sometimes they just want to go out and connect to internet applications like, from the same device. And today, the way that we make them connect to all those applications is entirely different. And so if I connect to my application in my private data center, I got to make sure that I turned on VPN and I've actually logged into VPN. But if I'm connecting to an application in the public cloud, I need to have zero trust network access. There are times I need to do a bypass because I need to go directly to Office 365. And there's just too many kind of, permutations and combinations. And that complexity doesn't help anyone. Yeah. And so what we wanted to do was solve that while providing the greatest amount of security. And so the zero trust part was provide least privileged access rather than giving people a lot more access than what they need to get the job done. But the zero friction part was to make sure that it does not become a cognitive overload. So if we can do zero trust with zero friction, we think we've achieved a very special state that the market's not able to go out and deliver today. And that's what we feel like we've done with Cisco Secure Access. If you look at some of our competitors, they'll have a separate stack for going out and connecting to internet applications. They'll have another stack for connecting to private applications. Those two don't talk to each other. We don't have that. We have one client. It just works in the background, and you open your laptop, you connect, and you're good to go. And we also announced that if you have Apple devices, you don't even have to download a client.
That's incredibly cool, isn't it? Just a look around this room we're talking now. Most people have got iPhones.
That's right.
You don't want a second device. You don't want to be using different software.
We want to make it just easy and simple. And you don't want people to be thinking about whether or not they're doing everything they need to be secure. You just want them to be secure.
Yeah. And of course, at a tech conference, it seems like a law has been passed where we've got to mention generative AI. There's a few jokes around that today, but can you tell me more about the AI elements in security and maybe provide an example or use case around the security policy management Gen AI assistant that's coming later this year? I know that got a few gasps today too.
Yeah, well, firstly, AI is a pretty big part of security because you can't handle the sophistication of attacks at human scale anymore. You have to also add machine scale to it. So It's just, it's too vast of a problem to handle at human scale. So when you think about this, we've built a bunch of innovation around things prior to generative AI, things like encryption visibility engines. So if you have an end-to-end encrypted platform, how do you make sure that without doing deep packet inspection, you can detect whether or not there's an anomaly, and we've actually got that. And so our new firewall, has enhanced capabilities on the encrypted visibility engine because they use the latest version of the OS, and the latest version of the OS has that. However, when you start thinking about the next big kind of, breakthrough moments that are going to be had, it's with the machine's understanding of language and the ability to reason and be able to engage in an interactive dialogue with a human to say, this is what I can do for you. And everyone should have an assistant. And if we have an assistant from AI for creating a policy, like you mentioned, those are massive step function improvements because right now there's companies that have 6 million rules on their firewall. It's impossible to go out and actually manage that effectively. And that problem keeps compounding. So if we use generative AI, not only are we going out and making it easy to set a policy, we're also going out and looking at your hygiene of the environment saying, well, you've got 24 rules, but you could probably get it down to 11 if you went out and did this. And so it creates a level of hygiene in your environment with your policies. And that's going to be all available with this next wave of user experiences. So the first wave of user experiences, the way we think about it, was command line interfaces. I still remember I used to take pride in using MS-DOS and knowing the first top 50 commands and moving files around. Right? Yeah. I'm sure you remember those days. Then you went into graphical user interfaces. And the command line still existed, but majority of the people moved to graphical user interfaces. Then you moved to touch, and touch has become one of the predominant interfaces. And now I think we're going to move to a fusion of prompt-based interfaces with GUI in an interactive conversational AI mode so that you can actually ask the computer to do something. It'll actually give you some suggestions. You can approve the suggestions. You can modify them. You can find other efficiencies elsewhere and then make sure that you can enact those suggestions so that it can be deployed. And that's magic. Like that's something that is very cool. And when you start thinking about that, what the potential is for that, not just for setting a policy in one area, but then what this could look like for software in general over time, I think every piece of software will have some level of generative AI capability that allows you to go out and have natural language inputs into the system.
And when is this going to be released for Cisco users?
By the end of the year.
By the end of the year?
Yeah. So we're moving fast.
Yeah, man, that's incredible.
And we also talked about the SOC assistant. So the SOC assistant was when you have a security operations center, the SOC analyst typically gets a lot of different notifications, and the signal to noise ratio is pretty bad. And when you have a breach that's occurring, one of the things that you have to do is make sure that you can detect that breach in near real time, and then make sure that you do all the things that are needed for responding and remediating that breach as fast as possible. That's where we feel like the SOC assistant could be a massive, contribution to society, because imagine if you got notified when the system thought you had a breach.
Yeah.
Imagine after you got notified, if it was in fact a breach that was occurring, the system automatically created an incident report and sent it to the right stakeholders. And then imagine if there were things that you could do to remediate. Like, let's make sure that you have a honey net over here. Let's make sure that you have, some kind of way to go out and automatically remediate this by isolating this area. All of those aspects can be done in a meaningfully efficient manner compared to what was happening in the past, because now you've got this AI assistant that you can go back and forth with. And boy, that's pretty powerful.
And all this is this year, then, we're talking.
So the detection of a breach and the ability for having an incident report will be this year. Response and remediation will be a few months after.
Yes, yeah.
It'll bleed into 24, but in the first half of 24.
Wow. Now, I know another topic very close to your heart here is how teams collaborate. So how do you see this evolving over the next 12 months?
The way that we think about it, the future of work is hybrid, and they're going to work in a mixed mode, sometimes in the office, sometimes at home, sometimes somewhere in the middle. And I think the hybrid experiences have not been that great for people.
Yeah.
Right. And it's hard, but you always feel left out. You don't feel like you're quite immersed in the meeting if you're remote. And so what we've done is try to solve that problem. So we've used a lot of AI to solve that problem. AI for audio intelligence, AI for video intelligence, AI for analytics, and then now, most recently, AI with kind of natural language and generative AI. And with that generative AI component, you'll be able to do things like provide summaries on the meetings that you might have missed, saying, here's what you missed, and here were the action items.
Wow.
Provide an agent and a contact center the ability to summarize what the customer might be calling about, so that they don't have to read pages and pages of what they're going through, or they don't have to keep asking the same questions that frustrate the customer. You just provide agent summaries. And over time, deliver self-learning contact centers. And so there's a tremendous amount of excitement there on the kinds of things that we can do that are going to be fundamentally transformational to any kind of experience that people have with collaborating with one another. Where ideally what you want to have is the distance between two people goes away and the technology disappears, and you just feel like you're right there with them.
That's it. What I find particularly exciting about that is I think we've all sat in meetings before that we shouldn't have been in. We had no need to be in there, but if you've got that AI summary, a meeting that you're not actually needed, you just want to see the takeaways.
And the beauty is you only get the summary for those meetings that you have permission to get, not for any meeting. And so the security is pretty important on that dimension as well.
So, of course, with great power comes great responsibility, as they said in the Spider-Man movies. So can I ask you to share a comment on responsibly using AI in the months ahead? Because, again, it's another big topic, right?
It's a huge topic. We spend a lot of our brain cycles on how is the responsible use of AI going to be pretty important to humanity at large. Because, look, I'm an eternal optimistic on AI. I think that there's a huge upside, but I'm not oblivious to the downside. And I think the downside could be pretty profound if you do it wrong. And once it goes down that path, it's going to be very hard to stop. And so what you have to do is make sure that before you get something out in the wild, you've thought about it. You've been tempered in the way that you've thought about it. You aren't just going out and, haphazardly releasing things. And so we have a responsible AI framework. It helps you with things like, how do you make sure that bias in the training models can be addressed so that you don't have data that you're training the system with that has an excessive amount of bias? How do you make sure that you have things like fairness? What do you do about things like transparency? And so those are core tenets that we have within the responsible AI framework that our teams work on very carefully, so that every product that gets released from Cisco with AI actually, adheres to and follows the responsible AI framework.
No, I was saying earlier, you completely rocked your keynote on stage. And when you and your team were building these presentations, I'm curious, what did you want every Cisco Live attendee and podcast listener listening to us today to walk away thinking about this year? What were the key takeaways that you really wanted to deliver?
Well, the biggest takeaway I want people to have is that security is a critical part of our infrastructure. And if we don't keep the world safe with cybersecurity, then there's a lot that can go wrong. And the way to do that is not by a bunch of point solutions, but by providing an integrated platform which can provide better correlation of telemetry rather than just simple aggregation of telemetry, right? And if you can provide that platform and provide a simple user experience for the user, the cloud infrastructure, for applications, and if a breach occurs, what you've equipped the world with is the ability to keep themselves safe. And the problem with security is you're just as safe as the weakest link.
Yeah.
And so it's a least common denominator approach. If you are engaging with a company who has security vulnerabilities, you could be really safe, but by engaging with them, you expose yourself. And the way that you keep yourself safe is make security simple enough, make it a unified platform, and make it the best AI-powered end-to-end security platform on the planet. If we do that right, I think we can actually unlock a lot of potential in the world. And if we do it wrong, you put humanity at risk.
I think that's a powerful moment to end on. A huge pleasure as always, Jeetu. We'll be staying in touch. Hopefully get you on later in the year when everything's out there. But thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
As always, a huge thank you to Jeetu for coming on here and sharing his in-depth insights into the trajectory of cybersecurity and the efforts that Cisco is making to ensure that security no longer hinders our digital experience. It actually enhances it in a frictionless experience. So I think we learned today about Cisco's strides towards a future where security solutions minimize risk, yet do provide that seamless user experience. And I think we need to remember technology and security go hand in hand. And that goal to achieve a frictionless security, to have security measures that are rigorous but unobtrusive, is incredibly exciting. So let's continue to strive towards that balance, because we've learned it's not just about securing our devices, but our identities, our networks, and our applications. Food for thought indeed. Please share your insights with me by emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just @NeilC.Hughes. But a big thank you for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe. Keep up to date with the latest insights in technology. I've got another great conversation lined up for tomorrow. So please stay safe, stay connected, and keep pushing the boundaries of innovation. Goodbye for now, but I'll be back for tomorrow. So thank you for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.